today we're covering an old classic. So this is going to be Dash Inventor Extraordinaire, the first version of her that came out in Arcane Rising. Just a very simple hero text. You're just going to be starting with a item in play that costs 2 or less. Now, today's list is going to be more boost focused because probably the best item that we have access to in Project Blue starting in play is going to be Hyperdriver. So Hyperdriver unlocks some kind of interesting synergies for the deck. So these are going to be cards like Jumpstart and a Rev Up, also Recharge as well. These are all things that kind of synergize with having that Hyperdriver starting in play. These are just very good static cards, and they're pretty much identical to cards like 0 to 60 and Zipper Hit and Throttle. So getting to start with the Hyperdriver in play means you get to double up on probably the best boost cards that she has available to her in this format. So the rest of the deck is kind of just looking to smooth out that all gas, no brakes kind of game plan. So we have a couple cards that are kind of niche like Big Bertha and Crankshaft in blue. These are just resource cards, but if you ever boost them away, they'll add an extra steam counter to your Hyperdriver to keep it around a little bit longer. We have some T-Bones plus Scramble Pulse. It's kind of a push through some of the defenses of decks. So you're able to set these up and sculpt pretty good 5-card hands. And also in terms of good 5-card hands, you have really powerful chain enders like Overblast or Big Shot that synergize really well if you're keeping enough cards to be able to boost enough times in a turn to have these pay off really well. In Dash IE playing boost, things like Max V were very strong, right? So you kind of want to recreate that same thing. These are a little bit more inflexible, but you also do have the Hyperdriver. So while you're not getting the plus, every single turn from something like Tekla Pounder, you are actually in your resource curve smoothed out a lot, which I actually think will make some of these a lot more playable. Our equipment is probably the most lackluster part of this year. I just don't think that Mechanologist has a very ample equipment suite for the Project Blue format. So we're just running Old Knocker as a cheap way to get a resource. We're running Achilles, which is probably the best part of this deck, and then 2 Blade Beckoner pieces just to have some extra defenses. You will need to actually pretty much put yourself on the back foot sometimes if you're going to set up like some of these like 5-card hands sometimes in the mid game. So it's important to have some blocking equipment. Our inventory is mainly trying to solve the fatigue problem. I don't know how solved this is, to be honest. I just haven't had time to really extensively test anti-fatigue plans in mech in this format. But we have some ideas here. So we have Outpace. Outpace is really good. If you want to combine it with something like Boom Grenade, you can play Outpace, and they'll have to probably give you at least 2 cards on your attack on the Outpace, unless if they want to leak 4. And the whole point of this into Fatigue is getting to leak damage. A Convection Amplifier to actually just push the Boom Grenade on hit through. Payload is just a good way to have Dominate. This can close out the game, or combined with Boom Grenade, it can be very powerful, right? So the idea here is these make cards more difficult to block, and then they add an extra on hit that you can set up right into a Fatigue deck. You can play Red Boom Grenade, choose not to crank it, Arsenal, like one of these really powerful enders, right? So this would be a card like Payload you could stick in Arsenal, or you're going to put Big Shot or Overblast in your Arsenal. And then you're going to put the Fatigue player on a 4-card hand, and they probably won't be able to disrupt you all that much. And your life total doesn't matter if all they're doing is blocking you out every single turn. You probably should be at 20 life. And then you're going to take whatever they send at you. And then on your next turn, you're going to kind of push through the defenses by scaling up all of that damage into a single turn. If you do that a couple times in a game with only 20 health, it should be more than enough to kill them. We're also trying out Cognition nodes. This one's a little bit weirder to me. I don't actually know how strong this will end up being, but this could be your start and play item if you really want to. Just for 1 resource, you can always have the option to put something back on the bottom of your deck when it hits. And the cool part in this format is it's a reaction, and there's very few defense reactions in this format. So if your opponent is letting 1 go through, it's pretty safe just to use the Cognition nodes on it. And you probably won't get blown out all that often. It will happen, but I think that's totally fair. One minor piece of tech for the aggro matchup is going to be Combustible Courier. This just presents a good on hit. It'll be a 2 for 7. If this connects and gives you the extra +3, which is what you need against aggro decks. Very simple game plan. Just going to be boosting, dealing a lot of damage. You do have good 3 blocks though, so you can actually block out a little bit and play some smaller hands. You'll have plenty of hands where you will just send something like a Rev Up and then pistol afterwards, and it's perfectly fine as a play pattern. So we'll get into some gameplay, that way you can kind of see how I play this deck. All right, so we're playing against Scurf here. The only change that we made in sideboarding was we cut one of the Scramble Pulses for Combustible Courier. I didn't really expect a whole lot of high blocking armor, and I do anticipate this to be more of an aggro matchup. So I just want to play the Combustible Courier. Looking at this opening hand, it's pretty bad, but we can try to hedge for getting a blue in the next hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and probably pitch our Big Shot. Because we have Throttle and Combustible. These are both pretty resource intensive cards. We counter on the pistol. Arsenal are 0 to 60 and hope to draw a blue here. We get a blue. So when you think about a curve here, we have access to 2 extra resources with Hyperdriver and Old Knocker, so we have 5 resources available to us. That means that we can play every single card in our hand if we want to. So with how explosive this hand looks, I kind of see no reason to block. However, a mech does have really good 3-block density. So if we wanted to, we could do a hand even as simple as playing 0 to 60, getting a resource from Hyperdriver, using it for the jump start, and then ending with a pistol shot. So we have a really big scale of hands here. So my opponent is sending only money or your life. I have seen some of the Scurvy lists and I have worked on my own, so I do know that these lists do play pummel. This does have an on hit for an extra 4, so this is basically a 2-card 8. If they do pummel it, over blocking here is kind of a liability. We could block it out for 8, but that would require 2 cards from us. I might as well make my opponent have the pummel in hand. I fully anticipate it to get pummeled here. It is a blue pummel, so it could have been worse, I suppose. I think if we're going to lose any card here, we need to think about our curve. Probably makes sense just to lose the combustible courier. It is going to be a little bit awkward because we're going to end up with an extra resource, so we kind of get punished a little bit here. It also means that we end up taking 10, but now we at least get a pressure a little bit back. We'll send the jump start, boost again. Pretty straightforward deck. We can decide actually to hold on to the 060 in Arsenal. We may need to. We're not presenting lethal here, so we might as well hold it in Arsenal and then just look to play a hand where we just boost the 0 cost to get a resource. With Old Knocker, that can open up some lines where we can play, like, for instance, Throttle with no other cards in hand. It's pretty bad, so we end up losing our Hyperdriver. Luckily for us, it's not super relevant to our turn, but that definitely does suck. We are out of that for the rest of the game. Thinking about how our hand functions without it, our curve is exactly the same as it was before, so we get pummeled on top of it. Okay, this deck is like a little obnoxious. We end up just losing a blue zipper hit, which is fine. We weren't going to be using it regardless. But this hand does get significantly worse. We can still curve out, but we have a lot riding on this combustible courier hitting, which is definitely a problem. We'll go ahead and send it. My opponent could just fridge block this out. And I think they can actually keep a full grip here if they want to. They could give all 4 pieces. And now we need to think if we want to still send the 0 to 60. I'm kind of leaning towards no. I just still want to hold on to this. It kind of doesn't make any sense to send it. And there are some things that do care about us boosting within a turn. So until we're dead, kind of no reason to hold on to this here. Obviously, if it was pressuring lethal, I would just send it, but we have some things that synergize with boosting. So I will patiently sit on this card in Arsenal. This hand is very good. Unfortunately, we no longer have the Hyperdriver. So when you think about how we want to block this, we have to at least give 1 card here. So if we're going to give 1 card, if we give the Bertha, we can crack the chest piece and play the zipper hit, 0 to 60 and T-bone. But it means that we can't pistol. So I think we're just going to block like this. We honestly should send the T-bone first. There's a chance that my opponent blocks for 5 efficiently with their 2 remaining equipment. So I might as well put the T-bone in front. This makes blocking a little bit awkward for them. We potentially actually get to rip some cards here. So we actually may have an out back into this game. We actually get 2 pistol shots here with the accelerator, which is very relevant for this deck. So I could see us potentially clawing ourselves back in on this turn. Load the pistol. It's pretty irrelevant, but it is resource efficient. So I think, you know, with them having no cards in hand, it's probably a fine opportunity to do this. They go to 2, future pistol shots are presenting lethal. Our armor does not trigger against sticky fingers, so we're gonna have to give a full card for this, which definitely is not great. We need to think about how we want to block. We can actually use the Old Knocker, but our hand doesn't actually curve out to do that. Although we can potentially Arsenal the rev up when we think about this. So the whole reason why I might want to keep a card is we're down to 18 cards in deck. So we are running kind of close the risk of fatiguing out. So if we just block with Old Knocker, we can send a recharge under loop pistol, and then we can Arsenal the rev up. That might be better than just blocking with it. It's kind of a weird risk, but I kind of want to carry over like some late game bomb, in my opinion, just because it's getting a little dicey here. But we'll go ahead and play the recharge. We will send the underloop. We're in the same predicament where, man, we can either rip their last card or take out their sticky fingers. Either way, they get a card from us because we either have to block the sticky fingers or they kept a blue for Talishar. I mean, with 2 blues blocked, I'd be surprised if they didn't. And they send the Talishar. We do get to block with 1 card, like 1/3 block plus an armor piece, so it's pretty negligible. I don't think it really makes a difference. We're just gonna send it at them just on the off chance they had a non-block for some reason in the deck, because I think this is pretty marginal. Like, it doesn't matter either way. We'll go ahead and block with our blue T-bone here. So if they have a 2 block in the sand, I think they lose. I need to do the math here, but we'll just find out when they're forced to block. We'll boost. We're gonna go 6 into 6 into 2. This should be lethal. I think regardless, even if their hand I think is all 6 blocks, or even if their hand is all 3 blocks, I think they lose here. Okay. Yeah, it was pistol for lethal. Pretty close game, honestly. I was pretty surprised with how this one turned out. Honestly, the tempo they got going second playing the pummel was actually really strong. Our overall value for the turn cycles was pretty solid, actually, considering that we were put on the back foot pretty quickly. I was actually pretty impressed with the deck. I mean, just playing blues on turn 2 and like pressing lethal so quickly. Like we were under, I think we were behind on tempo most of the game. You know, we were just like clawing it out though with like pretty good efficiency. So the deck can definitely, you know, pull ahead regardless of what point it's at in the game, because you just have like really good raw stats on your cards. Like you can just go like 2 card 8 with like throttle, boost, pistol. Like it has really easy lines to get back in the game. You can even hold on to cards like 0 to 16 Arsenal and just like flex the resource. Like you can boost, trigger Hyperdriver, play like a zipper hit, and you get like a 2 card 9. So it's weird because like this deck is like it's a pure math deck. It's like not an aggro deck that scales on hits or does these like flashy combo plays. It's like raw flesh and blood. So hopefully that kind of helps you understand how you might play the deck. Like you have 3 blocks. You can use the 3 blocks when you need to, but when you don't, you can just look at the values on the cards, math it out what the best value line is going to be for your hand, and try to like always be efficient with your blues, because the deck curves out really well every single turn if you just find the right line. So hopefully that's helpful to get you started. But until next time, thank you for watching.